Oh. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Garishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hari Om and good evening from Niagara Falls. What is the difference between samsara and sambandha? These are two words we use quite often in Vedanta. Samsara and sambandha. The difference between the two is meaning. Where there is no meaning, that is samsara. It could be professional, this could be with family, this could be our own health. And where there is meaning, that is sambandha. Try not to translate sambandha only as relative. Sambandha means well connected. Meaning connects me to Bhagwan, to my nature. Most of us are in samsara because the path of least resistance is to just do. We are seduced into anartha. Anartha means that which has no meaning. Meaning demands us to think more, to exert more. And if I don't want to think and I don't want to exert, then why should I bring meaning into my profession, into my home, to my own health? Which is why we talk about enlightenment taking billions of years. We're already time-oriented, so we have to use such quantities, when in actuality, if someone has the right association, that becomes a catalyst to engaging in the right actions, which becomes a catalyst to engaging in the right attitude. Association, actions, attitude. Then we no longer think in terms of time, billions of years. We think along the lines of sincerity. How sincere I am will determine whether there's meaning or no meaning, whether that's samsara or sambandha. And the best association is with Bhagwan. Even our association with the Guru Shishya Parampara, where are they trying to direct our association? With God. For one to have association with God, with Bhagwan, one has to go deeper. One has to be deeper. And the deeper one goes, the more one aligns with humility. The purpose of why we breathe, the purpose of why we think, is to become more and more and more humble until we can't become any more humble, and that is when there is oneness. Even the virtue of humility is still in Dvaita, in two-ness. But when there's only me, there cannot be conceit. There cannot be humility in oneness. This is what Bhagavan Krishna is sharing with Prince Arjuna in chapters 1 through 6. And now we continue to chapter 7, where the focus is less about Tvam, that is Prince Arjuna, and more about Tat, that is Bhagavan Krishna. In chapter 7, Bhagavan says we're going to evolve from focusing on jnana to focusing on vijnana. In English, that would be evolving from knowledge to wisdom. Shared differently, the focus will shift from murti to madhyama. Instead of seeing God outside of oneself, to start to see God inside of oneself. And I'll share this in another way. The person who's stuck in samsara, their mind is always wandering around Jagat. That is the multiverse, articles, beings, circumstances. But then they begin to think. And what do they think about? The jiva. Chapters 1 through 6 is focusing on the jiva, the individuality. And once you start to inquire, the evolution of that is to think, to wander around Jagadishvara. That is, not the individuality, but the totality. So chapter 7 is this transition chapter. At the beginning of this chapter, Bhagavan says, we are all bhaktas. And he qualifies by sharing two types of bhaktas are those who have a relationship with God because they are stuck in artha. Artha means they are in adversity. So they have a relationship with God. They're beggars. The more evolved bhakta is not having this association with God out of adversity, but rather out of prosperity. That is artharthi. They're in prosperity and they're grateful to God for these blessings. Artha, artharthi, these are known as bhaktas. And the evolution of a bhakta is to be a shishya. Not a devotee, but a disciple. And so Bhagavan talks about the jignasu, the one who wants to know God. Not concerned about adversity or prosperity. They know that the purpose of living is Jagadishvara, is Bhagavan Krishna. Jignasu. They are a shishya. And the best amongst those who have a relationship with God is the jnani. Not the one who wants to know God, but the one who does know God, which means they know they are God. From Dvaita to Advaita. And Bhagavan shares near the end of this chapter, how do we evolve from Bhakta to Shishya? From Jignasu to Jnani. And he says we need Kripa. Kripa is grace. And where does grace come from? Our own efforts. You should feel that you're the hardest working person you know. That's when you're fundamentally invoking Kripa. When you feel that you're tireless. And this becomes a catalyst for vichara then. Those who are exerting, those who are changing, they're thinking, how should I change? What kind of actions should I engage in? Right association, right actions. And vichara becomes a catalyst for pramana. Pramana is where knowledge becomes authoritative. For most of us, there is knowledge, but it's not authoritative knowledge. And knowledge that is not authoritative, a better word for that is information. We have information about Bhagavad Gita, but is Bhagavad Gita a pramana for us? This is how chapter 7 is completed. And Prince Arjuna, he is not focused on adversity, prosperity. He's a jignasu. If you compare Prince Arjuna in chapter 8 from chapter 1, he's not even interested in Raja, Praja. None of that matters anymore. He is a mumukshu. He wants to be free. And he showcases this intensity by asking Bhagavan Krishna 7 questions. He wants a full narration on what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, what is Karma, what is Adhibhuta, what is Adidheva, what is Adiyagnya, and finally, what is Prayana Kale? So 7 questions is how chapter 8 begins. And if you're expecting me to answer all of these questions, then this wouldn't be a review, correct? You're all taking notes intensely. Okay, we didn't pay attention that time. We're going to pay attention now. I'll answer one of these questions, which is most relevant to us, is what is karma? Karma is kshara that leads us to akshara. Kshara means that which is changing. And if our changing is leading us to the changeless, that is karma. But if the changes in our life, physical, mental, intellectual, articles, beings, circumstances, are not leading to infinity, then that's not karma. That's just shrama. Shrama means labor. Shared differently, all of the becoming that we're engaged in should be leading us to being. If the becoming is not leading to the being, that is not karma. And in this chapter, Bhagavan so lovingly teaches Prince Arjuna about how to ensure that he's engaged in karma, how to go to the depth of all of these answers, and he brings up, Prince Arjuna, you need to revolve around Veda, Tapa, Dana, Yajna. And Bhagavan has consistently brought out these terms in our study of Bhagavad Gita. Veda is insight. You need to revolve around Veda because the Veda gives you insight into you, into life. Once you have this insight, Tapa. Tapa is to invest in oneself, to make the best use of the body, mind, intellect. And what to do with this investment? Dana. Share this selflessly. And this training should lead to yajna, which means to be dedicated to God, to life, to the only purpose, which is enlightenment. I was thinking a lot about these terms, Veda, Tapa, Dana, Yajna. And the connection that I was able to make for myself is this is what Rishi Patanjali teaches in the 2nd chapter of the Yoga Sutras. The first sutra in the 2nd chapter, he defines Kriya Yoga. And he says Kriya Yoga is Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. Now let's connect this to Bhagavad Gita. What is Veda? Veda Swadhyaya, correct? Studying oneself. Vedanta is studying what's inside. So Swadhyaya and Veda, those go together. Then Rishi Patanjali says Tapa, and naturally Bhagavan Krishna said Tapa also. And then there's Ishvara Pranidhana. Where do you see Ishvara? In the people around you. That is that Dana. And when you're trained in this, then there's yajna, there's dedication to life. Were you all able to connect those points? What you need to know here is Kriya Yoga is not a Kriya. And this is important because if one is truly going to engage in Kriya Yoga, truly, not in a diluted way, not in a relaxation way, Veda is the beginning of Kriya Yoga, like Rishi Patanjali says, Swadhyaya. And so much of what we know of yoga now is completely devoid of studying. True? Make sure that person is not you. Bhagavan completes chapter 8 by talking about Prayana Kale, where Prince Arjuna asks, if I die, what will happen to me? And Bhagavan talks about the path of the moon and the path of the sun. And we studied this deeply, that the path of the moon is someone who lives for valuables. That which is inert, that which is dark. And those who follow what we've studied, they follow the path of the sun. The sun is values, that which is consciousness. So there's light there. How I live today is going to decide my tomorrow, and all of my tomorrows are going to determine my next life. Bhagavan very systematically says, follow the path of the light, which is values. Then there's no reason to fear. What's fascinating about the fear of death, that's what Prince Arjuna is talking about. If you're afraid, that means you're not dead. And if you're dead, you can't be afraid. True. So this fear of death, nobody knows what death is nobody knows the experience of death. Other than enlightened masters who are beyond death, nobody knows the experience of death. Because if you're experiencing death, you're not dead. And if there's no experience, you are dead. So what are you afraid of? It's a complete game that we play with ourselves and lose. But for the person who's living a life of values, there is no fear of death. They're objective. I know a lot of us are afraid of getting older, of dying. Follow the path of the sun. Arjuna wants more. He is not satisfied with just life and death for the body. In chapter 9, Bhagavan says, listen carefully as I explain to you this Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge, the best knowledge. And why is this the king, the best of knowledge? What is the only need we all have? People call it a want, but what is our only need? Happiness. To be independently joyous. And what knowledge is leading us to be independently joyous? Physics, economics, cooking, vacuuming, being a parent. None of that does directly. But this knowledge directly leads us to independent joy. Hence, this description of Raja Vidya is not an exaggeration. This is the truth. Please know at no point in our study of Bhagavad Gita is there any exaggeration. You only exaggerate if you need to sell something. What is Bhagavan trying to sell? Arjuna asks, no? And this is known as Raja Guhya, which means the royal secret, the greatest secret. And the technicality behind here is that this science is beyond pratyaksha. It is beyond the equipments that we have, body, mind, intellect. It is beyond anumana. You cannot infer your spirit. Coming back to some people I interact with who believe that they're engaging in contemplation, but they haven't studied. What are they contemplating on? No? You have to know of the Spirit. You have to know of the nature of the Spirit to be able to contemplate on that, to identify with that. No. Don't be shallow. This is our review of Bhagavad Gita. We've been studying this for 16 months, and I'm sharing again and again and again the depth of Bhagavad Gita, the depth we need to go into ourselves to engage these teachings. Bhagavan shares the knowledge. He says, referring to creation, I am not in them, they are in me. If you remember that deep statement, I am not in them, they are in me. And I gave you a different reference point. Think about this as thoughts. Awareness does not depend on thoughts. Thoughts depend on awareness. Correct? Sometimes it's too abstract, so I hope I was able to make that more objective. And what's lovely about this teaching, shortly after, Bhagavan says, actually, they're not in me either. So I am not in them, they're in me. Psych, they're not in me either. Is what Bhagavan is teaching. And so he takes us to the deepest depth by sharing that there's no thoughts. There's no duality. There is only being. Sat, Chit, Ananda. And Prince Arjuna loves this. He's enamored by this. He wants to be, but how? How do you jump from where I am to being? Bhagavan says bhakti. And there's the most lovely shlokas in chapter 9 about bhakti. Here, Lord Krishna says, depend on that which is independent. Depend on that which is independent. And when you depend on that which is independent, slowly you become independent too. And how does it become easy to depend on that which is independent? By knowing that which is independent. The more you know Bhagavan, the more you love Bhagavan. The more you know all changes, the more you go with the flow with those changes, correct? The first satsang that Puja Swami Tejamayana that ever shared at Chinmaya Dhara, the theme of that was fall with the fall and flow with the flow. And he was connecting that to Niagara Falls, that Niagara Falls is falling and flowing. And if we learn to fall with the fall and flow with the flow, then you don't get hurt. Our son Vyasa now, when he falls much more softly than he used to fall. Because he knows he can't stand independently yet. So he's going to fall, but now he knows how to fall also. And our problem is that he flows too fast now. Every day we are more physically tired than before. We don't exercise anymore. We just look after an 11-month-old baby. The more you know Bhagavan, the more you love Bhagavan. That's the power of knowledge. So Prince Arjuna wants to know, Bhagavan, where are you? And so in chapter 10 we begin Vibhuti Yoga. Vibhuti is Bhagavan expressing with a rupa and nama. God with form and name is Vibhuti. And at no point does Bhagavan mix the means and the ends. He's subtly teaching Prince Arjuna that through Vibhuti you have to get to yoga. With Vibhuti he's saying focus on creation. With yoga he's saying focus on the creator. That's deeper, correct? And yoga is still the means. Yoga should be leading us to focusing on the tattva. Beyond creation is consciousness. So from Vibhuti to yoga to tattva, or from Creation to creator to consciousness. This chapter is focusing on creation. And Prince Arjuna's sincerity is what moves Bhagavan to invest so much time and energy in sharing, out of all of these I am this, out of all of these I am this, out of all of these I am this. Many of you teach other people, you teach Balivihar, you teach your own kids. And when a student shows sincerity, you're ready to come up with 1,000 examples for them to learn, correct? And if they're insincere, you share one example and say, think some more. Learn how to think, not what to think. You throw out proverbs like that or quotes like that. We went through so many examples, and Bhagavan is generous because of Prince Arjuna. Some of the highlights, so that we really feel Bhagavan's love. Bhagavan says, Vidyanam Adhyatma. Out of all knowledges, I am Adhyatma, the knowledge of that which is inside. Another word for that is Vedanta. So think, aren't we with Bhagavan Krishna? Then Bhagavan Krishna says, Muninam Vyasaha. Out of all munis, I am Vyasa. Now, who wrote Srimad Bhagavad Gita? Vyasa. So again, we're with Bhagavan Krishna. He says, Pandavanam, I am Dhananjaya. Out of all of the Pandavas, I am Dhananjaya is another word for, name for Prince Arjuna. You see how we're with Bhagavan Krishna if you learn to look at creation. Past creation is the creator, which is where we go to in chapter 11. In chapter 11, Bhagavan Krishna is taking us in our evolution from sight to insight. From enquiry into mountains and rivers and time to inquiry. Where are these mountains and rivers and time within myself? And Bhagavan, he shows Prince Arjuna. He shows Prince Arjuna all of the vibhutis in chapter 10, but in chapter 11 he deletes space and time and matter. He deletes Dvaita and brings us all together into one entity. He gives us a taste of this Advaita in chapter 11. And as Prince Arjuna is seeing Bhagavan Krishna's Virata Rupa, his multiverse form, he sees Acharya Bhishma and Acharya Drona being sucked from the battlefield through Bhagavan Krishna's mouth. Now remember, when the apparently confident Prince Arjuna tells Bhagavan Krishna, put my chariot between both armies, Bhagavan quietly leads that chariot and says, behold, Bhishma, Drona. And then Prince Arjuna feels, I'm going to be killed. And now in chapter 11, Bhagavan is showing, hey, you think you're killing, you're going to be killed. Which is why there's a lovely teaching in chapter 11. Arjuna, nimitta matram. Be a instrument. Your whole life, up until this teaching, he's telling Prince Arjuna, you have been the doer. The evolution of doership is instrumentship. That's the message here. And he doesn't stop there. He gives him a hint into what's beyond instrumentship, where he introduces the word stane. Stane, all is as all is. In other words, all is perfect. In other words, where there is perfection, there has to be divinity or Brahman. The evolution of instrumentship is beership. That's not a real word, but you get what I'm talking about. Beership. Your bonus reflection adventure of the week is, for the next 7 days, I want you to use the word beership And you have to say it like that too. Be-ership in your day-to-day affairs. And what would be awesome is if you did it, but didn't flinch. Like, be-ership, and then you have to go there, and then we'll meet over there. That would be wonderful. So, nimitta matra. Your training to be-ership is instrumentship. And Arjuna loves this too. And the more that he's hearing Bhagavan Krishna's words, the more in love with Bhagavan Krishna he is. And when you love someone, you want to be closer and closer and closer with them. Chapter 12, entitled Bhakti Yoga. Prince Arjuna asks Bhagavan Krishna, and he has faith now. In chapter 2, when he surrenders, he has belief. In chapter 12, he has faith. And we've all studied in chapter 18, he has trust. In chapter 12, he has the faith and he asks Bhagavan Krishna, how can I be closer to you? Should I be closer to you with you as the creator, or Bhagavan, or should I be closer to you as consciousness, or Brahman? What is the way for me to be closer to you? And Bhagavan answers, the way to be closer to me is to be natural. And what is most natural? To have a relationship with God. All of us need to understand deeply. I've used this word many, many, many times. I think this is my new favorite word until I find another powerful Vedantic word. Sadhana should be natural. If you're listening well, you will naturally become reflective, or manana, you will engage. If you're reflecting well, you will naturally engage in nididhyasana, or contemplation. Today I went for a jog, and I jogged for 40 minutes. I don't know what time it was. I don't know where I was. I was in deep contemplation. And that's what I keep trying to teach people. You don't need to sit down. You don't need to turn the lights off. You don't need to be away from people. Contemplation should be natural. How will it be natural? If you're reflecting. How will you reflect if you're listening? And how will you be listening well? By following Dharma. If we just keep living our responsibilities beautifully, right association, right actions, right attitude, you don't have to contemplate in the way that we think of this commercialized contemplation. It's tricking yourself and tricking people. In Kali Yuga, we want everything fast, so we do that too. When this has to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Possible. And Bhagavan is sharing that. Be natural. Now, bhakti we defined as depending on God. I'd given you that reference point from Ramayana when Sri Lakshmana asks Bhagavan Rama, what is bhakti? And Bhagavan Krishna here so lovingly says, if you can't depend on God, then the next best option is practice depending on God. If you can't practice depending on God, the next best option is to dedicate your efforts towards God. If you can't do that, the next best action is to accept the results of your actions as coming from God. So depend is best, next best is practice, next best is dedicate, next best is accept. And to help us engage in all of this, the focus of chapter 12 is virtue development. Lots and lots and lots of virtues are shared in chapter 12. And we studied 8. I highlighted 8. The one I will highlight, and this is a review, is Aniketa. Many people have the word name Nikita, Nitika, Niketan, etc., etc. The root of all of this is Aniketa, which means the one who's homeless. So if your daughter's name is Nikita, when people ask, what does your daughter's name mean? You say homeless. The meaning of that is the one who does not depend on articles, beings, and circumstances for comfort. Aniketa means the one who's comfortable in their own skin, so they're comfortable with all other skins, going with this example. And if you don't have this virtue, what vice grows is dambitvam. Dambitvam means hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is swasya anyatha, when I act like someone I'm not. Someone who's not comfortable with themselves or is insecure, they always fake their personality for others, correct? We're studying depth. That means you have to keep on unmasking, keep on unlearning. Know God, remember God, feel God, see God, envision God, depend on God. That is chapters 7 through 12. Narayana.